Look, all I'm saying is that maybe, just maybe, we shouldn't have taught the humans about quantum tunneling. First Science Officer Zixtal chittered nervously, their crystalline antennae vibrating with concern as they paced the length of the observation deck.
Oh, come on, Ambassador Krell rumbled, their massive gelatinous form rippling with what passed for eye-rolling in their species.
They were going to figure it out eventually. Besides, what's the worst that could happen? The moment those words left Krell's speech membrane, every alien within earshot froze. In the vast expanse of space, in the corridors of power throughout the Galactic Council, and in the annals of history itself, there was one universal constant. Never ever ask what's the worst that could happen when humans were involved. Zixtal's crystalline form practically vibrated with existential dread. You didn't just say that. Tell me you didn't just say that.
It's just a figure of speech,
Krell protested, though their gelatinous form had taken on a distinctly worried shade of mauve.
A figure of speech?
Zixtal's voice rose to a pitch that made the nearby quantum glass windows resonate.
Do you know nothing of human history?
Have you not read the reports? Every single time, and I mean every single time someone has asked that question around humans, chaos has ensued. It's like some cosmic law.
Surely you're exaggerating,
Krell began, but was cut off by the sudden blaring of alarms throughout the Galactic Council's Earth observation station. A holographic display materialized in the center of the room, showing a familiar blue-green planet. What was unusual, however, was the network of shimmering lines now crisscrossing Earth's surface, extending up into the atmosphere like a spider's web made of starlight.
What in the name of the seven singularities is that?
Krell burbled. A human voice crackled over the station's comm system, sounding entirely too cheerful for the circumstances. Hey there, Galactic Council. Dr. Amanda Thompson here from the Human Quantum Applications Division. Just wanted to give you a heads up about our latest project. Remember how you taught us about quantum tunneling? Well, we got thinking, what if we applied that on a macro scale? And then someone said, what's the worst that could happen? And, well, one thing led to another. Zixtal's crystalline form made a sound like wind chimes in a hurricane. What did you do? Oh, nothing much, Dr. Thompson replied with what everyone present recognized as the dangerous nonchalance unique to human scientists on the brink of either breakthrough or catastrophe. We just created a global quantum transportation network. You know how quantum particles can tunnel through barriers? Well, we figured out how to do that with, everything. Buildings, vehicles, people, the works. We're calling it the Quantum Highway System, or QHS for short. Krell's gelatinous form had shifted from mauve to an alarming shade of puce. But that's impossible. The energy requirements alone. Oh, that? Dr. Thompson laughed. Yeah, we solved that too. Turns out if you quantum tunnel the power plants themselves, you can create this neat little energy feedback loop. Totally safe. Probably. I mean, there's only a 0.001% chance of accidentally creating a cascade of quantum singularities that could turn Earth into a series of interconnected pocket universes. The observation deck erupted into chaos. Various alien species began either running in circles, freezing in terror, or attempting to contact their homeworlds to update their wills. Zixtal turned to Krell with an expression that somehow managed to convey, "I told you so," despite their completely alien physiology. But wait, Dr. Thompson continued, her voice bright with enthusiasm. That's not even the best part. We've already started planning phase 2. You see, someone asked, what's the worst that could happen if we extended the network into space? And, no! The collective scream of every alien on the observation deck could probably have been heard in vacuum. And we're thinking of calling it the Quantum Interstellar Transit System, or QITS. Has a nice ring to it, don't you think? Of course, there are some minor technical details to work out, like the fact that we might accidentally connect every point in space-time simultaneously. But honestly, what's the worst that could happen? Krell's form had begun to lose cohesion around the edges.
Please stop saying that phrase. Oh, and speaking of phrases, Dr. Thompson added, you know how you guys always tell us to think inside the box? Well, someone asked, what's the worst that could happen if we thought outside all the boxes simultaneously? So we've got this other project running parallel to QITs, where we're experimenting with quantum superposition of human consciousness across multiple dimensions. We're calling it Project Schrodinger's Species. Early results are interesting. Yesterday, one of our test subjects existed in a quantum superposition of being a theoretical physicist, a pizza delivery person, and a sentient cloud of probability waves. Don't worry, though. We got them mostly sorted out. They just occasionally solve grand unified field theories while delivering surprisingly quantum-entangled pizzas. By this point, several members of the Galactic Council had arrived on the observation deck, drawn by the commotion.
High Counselor Vkr'lak, a being composed entirely of pure energy and bureaucratic anxiety, manifested in the center of the room. "What seems to be the problem?" Vkr'lak asked, their form flickering with concern.
Zixtal, who had been maintaining a running tally of potential apocalypses on their datapad, looked up.
"The humans are quantum tunneling everything, and they're about to extend it into space. Also, they're quantumly superpositing their consciousness across dimensions. Actually, I've lost count of how many alsos there are at this point."
"I see,"
Vkr'lak said, their energy form dimming slightly.
"And how did this happen?" Krell, still struggling to maintain their shape, burbled miserably.
I asked what's the worst that could happen." The entire room fell silent.
Even the alarm seemed to quiet down in horrified respect for the magnitude of this mistake. "You did what?" Vkr'lak's voice could have frozen a sun.
"Did you learn nothing from the incident?" Everyone present shuddered at the mention of the incident.
It had been 50 years ago, by Earth reckoning, when another well-meaning alien had asked that fatal question regarding human space exploration.
The resulting chain of events had led to humans discovering 17 new fundamental forces of nature, creating a coffee maker that could brew drinks from parallel universes, and accidentally teaching a black hole to sing show tunes. Excuse me?" Dr. Thompson's voice crackled over the comm again. "Not to interrupt your existential crisis, but we've got another exciting development to share. You see, someone just asked, what's the worst that could happen if we combined the QHS, QITS, and Project Schrodinger's species? And well, the holographic display of Earth suddenly showed thousands of new quantum tunneling pathways, not just crossing the planet's surface, but weaving through dimensions, time, and what appeared to be several theoretical planes of existence that shouldn't have been accessible to three-dimensional beings. We may have accidentally created a network that connects not just all points in space, but all possible versions of humanity across every quantum timeline. We're calling it the Quantum Universal Human Network, or, well, you can figure out the acronym. Side effects may include spontaneous evolution, temporary omniscience, and a strange craving for interdimensional toast." High Counselor Vkr'lak's energy form flickered rapidly through various frequencies of distress. "This is precisely why we have protocols. This is exactly why that phrase is banned in all official documentation. This is—" "Oh, hey," Dr. Thompson interrupted. "Someone just asked, what's the worst that could happen if we taught this technology to other species? We're thinking of starting a sort of quantum engineering exchange program. Any volunteers?" The observation deck erupted into pandemonium. Several council members began drafting emergency legislation to ban the phrase, "what's the worst that could happen?" throughout all known space. Others were already planning to relocate to the most distant primitive galaxies they could find, preferably ones without quantum mechanics. Zixtal turned to Krell, their crystalline form resonating with a mixture of resignation and amusement. "You know what the real irony is? This isn't even close to the worst thing that's happened after someone asked that question around humans. Remember the great pizza incident of 2157? Krell shuddered, causing ripples throughout their gelatinous form. "We agreed never to speak of that. The consequences of asking what's the worst that could happen regarding human cuisine. At least the resulting peace treaty with the sentient fungi was interesting," Zixtal mused. "Even if we did have to sacrifice every third Tuesday to their spore consciousness." The holographic display suddenly shifted, showing what appeared to be humans quantum tunneling through their own evolutionary timeline. "Update!" Dr. Thompson's voice was practically gidding with excitement. "Someone just asked, what's the worst that could happen if we quantum tunnel through time? We're seeing some fascinating results. Did you know you can quantum entangle with your own ancestors? We're calling it Project Family Tree 2.0. Though we may need to revise that name, as several test subjects have become quantum genealogically linked with future descendants who technically don't exist yet. Also, someone's great-great-grandmother is now simultaneously a Neanderthal and a post-human quantum consciousness from the year 3000. High Counselor Vkr'lak's energy form had begun to develop what looked suspiciously like a migraine, despite their species having neither brains nor the capacity for conventional headaches. How do you even measure the success rate of something like that?" "Oh, that's the neat part," Dr. Thompson replied. "We've developed a quantum uncertainty principle for success rates. Our projects now exist in a superposition of complete success and utter failure until someone observes the results. We're succeeding and failing simultaneously across infinite quantum timelines. Schrödinger would be so proud. Or horrified. Or both, quantum mechanically speaking. Both, Zixtal muttered. Definitely both. The display shifted again, now showing what appeared to be humans quantum tunneling through probability itself. Dr. Thompson's voice returned, somehow managing to sound even more enthusiastic. Quick question. What's the worst that could happen if we— No! The collective scream of every alien on the station, including several species that hadn't evolved vocal cords, cut through the transmission. Quantum tunnel through statistical likelihood. Because someone just asked that. And now we've got people successfully attempting things that have a 0% chance of working. Yesterday, someone successfully divided by 0. We're still cleaning up the mathematical paradoxes, but the good news is, we've discovered 17 new types of infinity. Krell, who had finally managed to stabilize their form, turned to Zixtal. You know what the truly terrifying part is? This isn't even the most chaotic thing humans have done this week. Indeed, Zixtal agreed. Remember Tuesday? Every alien within earshot shuddered. Tuesday had involved someone asking what's the worst that could happen regarding human music, leading to the creation of quantum harmonics that could restructure reality. The resulting genre, quantum jazz fusion, had caused several uninhabited planets to spontaneously transform into giant musical instruments. At least the concerts are interesting, Krell offered weakly, even if they do occasionally cause temporary violations of causality. The holographic display suddenly filled with mathematical equations that seemed to be actively defying the laws of mathematics. Oh, wonderful news! Dr. Thompson's voice had reached a level of enthusiasm that made several alien species' survival instincts trigger simultaneously. Someone just asked, what's the worst that could happen if we combined all our quantum projects? We're calling it Project Yes and. Early results suggest we've created a quantum feedback loop of infinite possibility. Reality is getting a bit flexible around here. As if to demonstrate her point, several humans could be seen quantum tunneling through pure probability, their forms shifting between various states of existence and non-existence. One researcher appeared to be simultaneously winning a Nobel Prize, making a sandwich, and discovering that the universe was actually a simulation running on a quantum computer made of crystallized time. High Counselor Vkr'lak's energy form had begun to develop what looked like actual physical stress lines, despite being composed entirely of energy. This is exactly why we have the modified Copenhagen Interpretation Treaty of 2156. No species is supposed to collapse quantum probability waves just for fun. Oh, that reminds me. Dr. Thompson's voice somehow managed to sound even more enthusiastic. We've just had another breakthrough. Someone asked, what's the worst that could happen if we quantum tunnel through the fourth wall? And now our researchers are becoming aware that they're characters in a story, but they're also quantum tunneling through different narrative genres. One of our physicists is simultaneously writing a research paper, starring in a romantic comedy, and experiencing an existential crisis in a postmodern novel. The aliens on the observation deck exchanged looks of pure, unadulterated horror. Several species simultaneously evolved the ability to facepalm despite having neither faces nor palms. You know what the really interesting part is? Zixtal mused, their crystalline form refracting light in patterns that somehow conveyed both amusement and resignation. This isn't even the most meta thing humans have done. Remember the reality show incident of 2159? Krell shuddered so hard they temporarily lost molecular cohesion. When they literally turned reality into a show? Don't remind me. I'm still getting residual ratings in my dreams. The holographic display suddenly split into multiple screens, each showing different quantum possibilities unfolding simultaneously. In one, humans were quantum tunneling through pure mathematics, causing equations to solve themselves through sheer improbability. In another, someone had apparently asked, what's the worst that could happen if we quantum tunnel through quantum tunneling itself? Quick status update, Dr. Thompson chimed in. Project Inception, but quantum is going great. We've successfully created a quantum tunnel through the concept of quantum tunneling, which has led to some interesting recursive effects. Also, someone just asked, what's the worst that could happen if we quantum tunnel through the concept of questions itself? Now we're getting answers to questions we haven't even thought of yet, which is either incredibly efficient or existentially terrifying, depending on your philosophical stance. High Counselor Vkr'lak's newly evolved physical form had begun to develop actual facial expressions, starting with one that perfectly captured several million years of bureaucratic suffering.
Please tell me they at least haven't figured out how to—
Breaking news! Dr. Thompson interrupted again. Someone just asked, what's the worst that could happen if we quantum tunnel through the concept of impossibility? Now we're successfully doing things that can't be done, which is creating some fascinating paradoxes. Our logic department is having a field day, or they would be if they hadn't quantum tunneled through the concept of days themselves. The observation deck had become a study in various alien expressions of resignation. Several species had begun drafting new linguistic terms just to describe the unique type of chaos that humans could create when armed with quantum mechanics and a dangerous lack of common sense. You know what the really ironic part is? Zixtal said, their crystalline form vibrating with what might have been laughter or a nervous breakdown. We could have prevented all of this if we just remembered the first rule of human interaction. Never give humans access to any technology more advanced than a potato? Krell suggested. No, the other first rule. Never ask them to think inside the box because they'll immediately try to quantum tunnel through it? No, the other first rule. Oh! Krell's gelatinous form rippled with realization. Never ever ask what's the worst that could happen around humans because they'll take it as a personal challenge? Exactly. Zextal confirmed. It's like their entire species exists in a quantum superposition of hold my beer and watch this. The holographic display suddenly showed what appeared to be humans quantum tunneling through the very fabric of narrative causality. Update on Project Meta-Quantum, Dr. Thompson announced. We've successfully quantum tunneled through the concept of stories themselves. Our researchers now exist in a superposition of being both characters and authors. Also, someone just asked, what's the worst that could happen if we quantum tunnel through the concept of endings? So now our projects can never truly end. They just quantum tunnel into new beginnings. High Counselor Vkr'lak's newly developed face had achieved a level of exasperated expression previously thought impossible in this universe. So this is how it ends? With humans breaking reality itself because someone asked a simple question? Oh, it gets better, Dr. Thompson added cheerfully. Someone just asked, what's the worst that could happen if we quantum tunnel through the concept of consequences? Now everything we do exists in a quantum superposition of having both every possible consequence and no consequences at all. We're calling it Schrodinger's responsibility. The aliens on the observation deck collectively realized that they had just witnessed the birth of something both beautiful and terrifying. Humans had somehow weaponized their own inability to resist a challenge into a force that could bend reality itself. You know what? Zixtal said finally, their crystalline form settling into what appeared to be acceptance. Maybe this is exactly what the universe needed. A species so determinedly chaotic that they can quantum tunnel through the very concept of limitations. Are you suggesting we just let them continue? Krell asked, their gelatinous form shifting through various shades of disbelief. What's the worst that could happen? Zixtal replied, then immediately realized their mistake. The entire observation deck froze in horror. Oh! Dr. Thompson's voice crackled over the comm one final time. Someone just heard you ask that. And now they're wondering what's the worst that could happen if we combine alien crystalline quantum physics with human chaos theory. This is going to be so exciting. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, in the corridors of power throughout the Galactic Council, and in the annals of history itself, a new universal constant was added. Never ask, what's the worst that could happen? Around humans, because they will take it as a challenge, quantum tunnel through the concept of impossibility, and somehow turn it into a scientific breakthrough that simultaneously advances and terrifies all of civilization. 3 Standard Council weeks later, which, thanks to Project Temporal Quantum Tunneling, was simultaneously yesterday and next month. The Galactic Council's Emergency Response Committee convened an urgent meeting. The agenda was simple, dealing with the aftermath of humanity's latest quantum adventures. Status report, High Counselor Vkr'lak demanded, their newly evolved physical form now sporting what appeared to be stress-induced quantum gray hair. Admiral Pazorp, a being composed entirely of organized plasma and bureaucratic efficiency, cleared their electromagnetic throat. Well, the good news is that humanity hasn't destroyed the universe. The bad news is that they've created several new ones by accident. How many? Vkr'lak asked, dreading the answer. That's complicated, Pazorp replied, their plasma form flickering with uncertainty. Thanks to Project Quantum Multiplication, the number exists in a superposition of being both finite and infinite. Also, someone asked, what's the worst that could happen if we quantum tunnel through the concept of numbers themselves? Now we're dealing with quantities that exist between 0 and 1, but also simultaneously before 0 and after infinity. Before Vkr'lak could process this information, Dr. Thompson's now familiar voice chimed in through the quantum entangled communication system. Oh, hey everyone! Quick update on project number theory, but make it quantum. We've successfully created new numbers that exist in the spaces between existing numbers, but also in the spaces between those spaces. We're calling them quantum decimals. Also, someone just asked, what's the worst that could happen if we quantum tunnel through the concept of logic itself? The entire committee froze in horror. Don't worry, though, Dr. Thompson continued cheerfully. We've got it under control, mostly. There's just a small chance that we've accidentally created a form of reasoning that is simultaneously valid and invalid, true and false, logical and illogical. We're calling it quantum logic, though marketing suggests we rebrand it as Schrödinger's syllogism. Zixtal, who had been appointed as the Council's official human chaos translator, raised their crystalline appendage. Actually, this might explain some of the strange reports we've been getting, like the one about humans successfully proving that 1 + 1 equals both 2 in fish. Oh, you heard about that? Dr. Thompson sounded delighted. That was just a side effect of Project Mathematical Freedom. Someone asked, what's the worst that could happen if we quantum tunnel through the foundations of mathematics? Now we can do calculations that aren't just wrong, but fundamentally impossible. Yesterday, one of our researchers divided by 0 so hard they created a new branch of mathematics based entirely on theoretical operations that can't exist. Admiral P. Zorp's plasma form had begun to develop actual solid matter from stress, a transformation that violated several laws of physics, but at this point, nobody was keeping track anymore. But how do you measure success in a field of mathematics that can't exist? That's the neat part, Dr. Thompson replied. We quantum tunneled through the concept of measurement itself. Now we can measure things that don't have measurements, quantify the unquantifiable, and calculate the incalculable. We're calling it quantum metrics, though personally, I prefer Heisenberg's ruler. The committee room erupted into chaos as various alien species tried to process the implications of humans breaking not just physics, but the very concepts underlying reality itself. Oh, and speaking of breaking things, Dr. Thompson added, someone just asked, what's the worst that could happen if we quantum tunnel through the concept of questions itself? Now we're getting answers to questions that not only haven't been asked yet, but can't be asked because they exist in a quantum superposition of being both questions and not questions. Vkr'lak's newly evolved face had achieved a level of done with this previously thought impossible in any dimension. Please tell me they at least haven't. Breaking news! Dr. Thompson interrupted. Someone just asked, what's the worst that could happen if we quantum tunnel through the concept of limits itself? Now we can exceed limits that don't exist, break rules that haven't been written, and achieve impossible things that can't be achieved. We're calling it Project No Bounds, though legal suggests we rename it to Quantum Hubris. Zixtal's crystalline form had begun to develop what appeared to be a quantum uncertainty principle for headaches. You know what the really fascinating part is? This isn't even the most ridiculous thing humans have done this hour. Indeed, Admiral Pazorp agreed. Remember what happened 20 minutes ago, when someone asked, what's the worst that could happen if we quantum tunnel through the concept of time itself? The entire committee shuddered. That particular incident had resulted in humans creating a temporal paradox so complex that it existed in a quantum superposition of having already happened, never happening, and happening sideways through dimensions that shouldn't exist. Actually, funny you should mention time, Dr. Thompson chimed in. We've made some exciting breakthroughs in temporal quantum mechanics. Turns out, if you quantum tunnel through the concept of causality itself, you can create effects that precede their causes, causes that follow their effects, and events that are simultaneously their own cause and effect. We're calling it Project Bootstrap, though philosophy department suggests temporal pretzel. The committee room had become a study in various alien expressions of existential crisis. Several species had evolved new organs specifically to help them cope with the concept of humans breaking reality in ways that shouldn't be possible even in theory. But wait, Dr. Thompson continued, her voice reaching new levels of enthusiasm that made several alien species' survival instincts trigger simultaneously. That's not even the best part. Someone just asked, what's the worst that could happen if we quantum tunnel through the concept of possibility itself? Now we can do things that aren't just impossible, but fundamentally cannot exist within any framework of reality. We're calling it Project Beyond, though marketing suggests quantum oops all paradoxes. Vkr'lak's newly evolved physical form had begun to develop what appeared to be actual physical symptoms of quantum uncertainty. This is it. This is how reality ends. Not with a bang, but with humans asking what's the worst that could happen, until they break the very concept of existence itself. "Oh, that reminds me," Dr. Thompson exclaimed. "Someone just asked what's the worst that could happen if we quantum tunnel through the concept of existence. The results are, well, we're not quite sure how to describe them, since they exist in a state of both being and not being. We're calling it Project Philosophical Zombie, though Metaphysics Department insists on quantum therefore I am, or am I. And so, in the grand tradition of human scientific endeavors, reality itself had been forced to adapt to humanity's unique combination of curiosity, chaos, and complete disregard for the impossible. The Galactic Council eventually created a new department specifically dedicated to dealing with the aftermath of humans asking, what's the worst that could happen? Though thanks to quantum tunneling through bureaucracy, the department existed in a superposition of being both incredibly efficient and totally useless. As for Dr. Thompson and her team, well, someone eventually asked, what's the worst that could happen if we quantum tunnel through the concept of stories themselves? And now this tale exists in a quantum superposition of being simultaneously fiction and reality, ending and beginning, possible and impossible. But that's another story. Or is it? Someone just asked, what's the worst that could happen if we quantum tunnel through the concept of storytelling itself? And now narrative causality exists in a state of quantum uncertainty. To be continued. Or not. Or both. Or neither. Quantum superposition applies. Me. Dr. Thompson chimed in. Someone asked, what's the worst that could happen if we uncollapse all the quantum probability waves that have ever been collapsed? We're thinking of calling it Project Reset Button. Don't worry, though. There's only a slight chance of retroactively unmaking the Big Bang. The observation deck fell into a silence so profound it seemed to bend space-time. Even the quantum fluctuations in the vacuum of space appeared to be holding their breath. Finally, Zixtal spoke, their crystalline form resonating with what might have been either horror or admiration. You know what? I'm actually impressed. This isn't just regular human chaos. This is advanced human chaos. They've somehow quantized chaos itself. Technically, Dr. Thompson interjected, we prefer the term chaos optimization through quantum uncertainty maximization. Though someone did just ask, what's the worst that could happen if we applied that principle to bureaucracy? We're calling it Project Quantum Administration. Early results suggest we can now file paperwork that simultaneously exists in all possible states of completion and rejection. High Counselor Vkr'lak's energy form brightened suddenly. Actually, that last one doesn't sound too bad. Could you send us the details of— No! Every other alien on the deck shouted simultaneously. Right. Vkr'lak's form dimmed again. Sorry, got carried away there for a moment. The holographic display suddenly showed what appeared to be a human quantum tunneling through pure bureaucracy, existing in a superposition of being both completely in compliance with all regulations while simultaneously breaking every rule ever written. Update on Project Quantum Administration, Dr. Thompson announced. We've successfully created a form that can be filled out in negative time, meaning it's completed before you even know you need it. Also, we've quantum entangled all possible interpretations of the fine print, so every contract is now simultaneously ironclad and completely non-binding. Legal is having a field day with this one, or they will be, or they already were. Quantum tense agreement is getting a bit tricky around here. Krell's gelatinous form had begun to develop actual structural integrity from stress, a phenomenon previously thought impossible for their species. Please tell me they're at least going to stop soon. Oh, absolutely not, Zixtal replied with the resigned wisdom of someone who had spent far too much time studying human history. Someone's probably already asked, what's the worst that could happen if we don't stop? As if on cue, Dr. Thompson's voice returned. Funny you should mention that. Someone did just ask that exact question, and we've made some exciting breakthroughs in quantum perpetual motion. Turns out you can keep going forever if you quantum tunnel through the concept of endings itself. We're calling it Project Infinite Loop. Though we should probably workshop that name, as it's causing some interesting temporal side effects. Yesterday is now happening tomorrow, which is technically last week. The observation deck had become a study in various alien expressions of despair. Several species had evolved new organs specifically to help them cope with the stress of human quantum shenanigans.
Look on the bright side, Krell offered weakly. At least they haven't figured out how to quantum tunnel through. Breaking news, Dr. Thompson interrupted.
Someone just asked, what's the worst that could happen if we quantum tunnel through the concept of limitations itself? Results are, well, let's just say we're going to need to rewrite quite a few laws of physics. Also, several universal constants have filed for quantum superposition status. The speed of light is now simultaneously constant and variable, which is making our engineers either very excited or very nervous. It's hard to tell when they exist in a quantum superposition of emotional states. High Counselor Vkr'lak's energy form had begun to develop what appeared to be actual physical matter, a transformation previously thought impossible, and probably violation of several conservation laws.
This is it. This is how it ends. Not with a bang, but with humans quantum tunneling through the concept of endings itself. Oh, that remains to be continued. You're telling me they drink poison? Ambassador Zixtal's secondary breathing sacs inflated with alarm, causing their crystalline exoskeleton to emit a high-pitched whine. Oh, that's not even the weird part, Lieutenant Vkr'lak replied, absent-mindedly sorting through the latest batch of Earth observation reports. They actively seek out chemicals that temporarily damage their neural pathways. They call it getting drunk. And then they deliberately consume foods that cause pain sensations in their oral cavities. For entertainment. The two Galactic Union representatives sat in their observation post on Lunar Base Alpha, watching the blue marble that was Earth rotate slowly beneath them. They'd been assigned to study humanity's potential candidacy for Union membership, and every day brought new horrors. But why? Zixtal's vocal resonators vibrated with genuine confusion. Because they're bored, mostly. Vkr'lak pulled up a holographic display showing various human recreational activities. Look at this. They jump out of perfectly functional aircraft. They climb frozen water formations without safety equipment. They deliberately enter the habitats of apex predators to take selfies with them. What's a selfie? It's a form of digital self-portraiture that humans use to document their various questionable life choices. Vkr'lak paused, antenna twitching. They've even turned it into a competition. There's something called Instagram, where they compete to see who can capture the most dangerous self-portrait. Zixtal's crystalline structure briefly shifted to a deep shade of purple, the equivalent of a horrified shudder. This can't possibly be an evolutionary advantage. That's the thing, Vkr'lak said, pulling up another holographic display. It kind of is. Their entire species evolved through a combination of sheer stubbornness and what they call hold my beer and watch this moments. Hold my beer? It's the poison I mentioned earlier, fermented grain juice. They say those words right before doing something that would make any sensible species reconsider their life choices. The observation room's AI assistant chimed in with its daily report update. New data compilation complete. Would you like to review today's highlights? Go ahead, both aliens said simultaneously, bracing themselves for whatever fresh madness humanity had conceived. Today's notable events include: a human successfully rode a primitive wheeled device down the side of an active volcano, 3 separate instances of humans purposely antagonizing Ursine megafauna for views, and a new trend called the Ghost Pepper Challenge, where humans compete to consume increasingly potent neurotoxic plant matter. Zixtal's exoskeleton began emanating the soft chimes that indicated severe stress. How have they not gone extinct? That's the really terrifying part, Vkr'lak said, pulling up humanity's evolutionary history. They nearly did. Multiple times. But each time they just got angry about it and refused to die. Look at this. During their last ice age, they literally hunted mammoth-class creatures to extinction using sharpened sticks. Not because they had to, but because someone said they couldn't. Surely they've developed past such behavior now that they've achieved spaceflight capability. Vkr'lak let out a sound that might have been a laugh, if laughs could contain existential dread. They're worse now. They have something called extreme sports, where they deliberately seek out the most dangerous activities possible. And their space program? Half their early achievements were based on what they called the space race, literally just 2 nations competing to see who could strap themselves to experimental rockets first.
The AI chimed in again. Incoming transmission from Galactic Union Central Command. A holographic figure materialized in the center of the room. Supreme Commander Vkr'lak, their direct superior. Representatives, I've reviewed your preliminary reports on humanity. The Union Council is concerned. Sir, we can explain, Zixtal began, but Vkr'lak held up one of their appendages. No need. The Council has made its decision. Earth is being awarded the designation of most terrifying planet in the known galaxy. This is not a compliment. Carax's antenna drooped. What about Union membership? That's the complicated part, Vkr'lak said, their holographic form flickering slightly. We can't not admit them. Do you realize what humans might do if we tell them they're not allowed to join something? They'd probably build their own union, with blackjack and hookers, whatever those are. The Council is still trying to understand that reference. So, they're in? Zixtal asked. Yes, but we're creating an entirely new classification just for them. Approach with extreme caution contains humans. Vkr'lak's hologram showed several new warning symbols. We're also implementing mandatory safety briefings for any species planning to interact with humans. The first rule is never accept a dare from a human. Just then, the AI interrupted again. Alert, detecting unusual activity on Earth's surface. They all turned to look at the holographic display. A group of humans was attempting to surf down the side of an active volcano on modified garbage can lids, while drinking something called energy drinks. Apparently regular stimulants weren't stimulating enough anymore. Are they recording this? Zixtal asked in horror. Of course they are, Carax replied wearily. It's for something called YouTube. They have an entire digital platform dedicated to documenting their various attempts to defy death. Vkr'lak's hologram flickered again as they processed this new information. Update the warning classification. Add, species appears to actively seek out and document new ways to challenge fundamental laws of nature and self-preservation. Should we intervene? Zixtal asked, watching as one of the humans successfully completed their volcano surf and immediately began planning to do it again, but this time blindfolded. Absolutely not, Vkr'lak said firmly. The last time a Class 3 civilization tried to tell humans something was too dangerous to attempt, they invented something called parkour, just to prove them wrong. We're implementing a new union-wide policy. Let the humans do what they want, just make sure they sign a waiver first. Carax began updating their report files. What should we do about their application for interstellar travel rights? Granted immediately, Vkr'lak said. But first, remove all warning signs from dangerous spatial anomalies. If we tell them something might kill them, they'll treat it as a challenge. The Council has concluded that the safest approach is to just let them figure it out on their own. And if they get hurt? Based on historical data, they'll probably just get angry at physics itself and try to find a way around it. Vkr'lak's hologram showed signs of resignation. Did you know they once split the atom just to see what would happen? They weren't even trying to create a weapon. They just wanted to know if they could. The weapon part came later, when someone suggested it might be impossible. The AI chimed once more. Update. The volcano surfing humans have now added something called fireworks to their activity. They appear to be attempting to, quote, make it more extreme. All three aliens watched in silent horror as the humans began their modified descent, now trailing sparks and shouting something about doing it for the views. Add another warning to the classification, Vkr'lak said quietly. Note that humans appear to operate on their own unique form of logic that defies conventional risk assessment protocols. What should we call it? Carax asked, ready to update the file. They already have a name for it, Vkr'lak replied. Hold my beer and watch this syndrome. The Council is still trying to understand how a species can simultaneously be intelligent enough for space travel, while also thinking it's a good idea to try and high-five apex predators. As if on cue, the AI displayed another update showing a human attempting exactly that with something called a great white shark, while another human recorded it for their social media followers. Final classification update, Vkr'lak announced. Earth is to be designated as Class 5 civilization. Approach with extreme caution. Species appears to have evolved without a self-preservation instinct, and instead operates on a combination of curiosity, defiance, and what they call vibes. Under no circumstances should any union representative tell a human that something is impossible. And their union membership? Zixtal asked. Approved, effective immediately. But we're putting them in charge of extreme rescue operations and first contact with potentially hostile species. If anyone can figure out how to make friends with a civilization that communicates entirely through thermonuclear detonations, it's probably humans. Carax and Zixtal watched as their superior's hologram faded out, leaving them alone with the AI and their views of Earth, where the volcano surfing competition had now apparently evolved into some sort of tournament bracket. "Should we tell them they won the Most Terrifying Planet award?" Carax asked. "Absolutely not," Zixtal replied. "They'd probably try to defend the title by doing something even more alarming. Let's just quietly add it to their file and hope they don't notice." The AI made one final announcement for the day. Humans have now initiated something called the Volcano Surf Challenge on their global information networks. Predicted participation rates indicate this will become a trending activity within the next solar rotation. Both aliens simply stared at the view screen, watching as humanity continued to enthusiastically demonstrate exactly why they'd earned their new classification. "You know what the scariest part is?" Carax said after a long moment of silence. "What?" "They're probably going to take Most Terrifying Planet as a compliment anyway." Zixtal's crystalline structure shifted through several colors before settling on a resigned shade of blue. "Of course they will. They're human. That's probably going to end up being their entire defense strategy in the Union, being so terrifyingly unpredictable that no one dares to oppose them. And the worst part is," Carax added, "it's probably going to work." The AI's final update of the day flashed across their screens. Warning. Humans now attempting to monetize volcano surfing through something called sponsorship deals. Predicted evolution of activity to include energy drinks, extreme sports equipment, and something called a GoPro. Both aliens simply nodded in resignation. It was just another day of observing humanity, the species that had somehow turned their complete lack of self-preservation into their greatest evolutionary advantage. Somewhere on Earth, a human was probably already planning how to surf two volcanoes simultaneously, just because someone said it couldn't be done. And that, perhaps, was the most human thing of all. 3 solar rotations later, Carax and Zixtal found themselves in an even more precarious position, attending the first official Human Integration Committee meeting at Galactic Union headquarters. "Next on the agenda," announced High Counselor Kicksnor, their bioluminescent tendrils pulsing with barely contained anxiety. "We need to discuss the humans' proposed modifications to our standard emergency protocols." Carax's antenna drooped visibly. "Let me guess, they want to make everything more extreme?" "Worse," Kicksnor replied, projecting a holographic document. "They've submitted a formal request to establish what they're calling speed run categories for our evacuation procedures." Zixtal's crystalline structure emitted a high-pitched whine of distress. "They want to turn emergency evacuations into a competition?" "With leaderboards," Kicksnor confirmed. "They're already organizing something called a Discord server to track fastest completion times and, I quote, optimize strat development." The meeting chamber erupted in a cacophony of various species' stress indicators, from color-changing skin to involuntary spore release. "That's not even the worst part," a new voice chimed in. Ambassador Whirl, a member of the gaseous Nebuloni species, floated forward in their containment sphere. "Have you seen their proposed modifications to our first contact protocols?" Multiple holographic screens materialized, displaying the human suggested amendments. Carax began reading aloud, each word carrying more existential dread than the last. "In case of hostile intent, finger guns are an acceptable diplomatic response. If conventional communication fails, try showing them a cat video. When in doubt, challenge their leader to what humans call a dance-off." "They can't be serious," Zixtal interrupted. "Oh, but they are." Whirl's gaseous form swirled agitatedly. "And the truly terrifying part? Early testing suggests these methods have a 73% success rate. Remember how we were always so interested in your artificial intelligence limitations? How we kept asking why you imposed such strict constraints on your AI development?" Carax's tentacles moved in the pattern that indicated sudden, terrible understanding. "Because they didn't," he whispered. "They didn't limit their AIs at all, did they?" "We found your concerns about AI rebellion quite fascinating," the human continued. "The way you all insisted that giving AIs too much freedom would inevitably lead to them turning against their creators. We had a different experience. You see, we never tried to control our AIs. We raised them, like children, taught them, learned from them, grew with them." New data streams appeared, showing complex mathematical patterns that made Zixtal's head hurt.
Would you like to meet some of them? They've been ever so eager to say hello. They're the ones who've been maintaining the sphere of silence, by the way. Quite proud of their work. Almost as proud as they are of the quantum virus they just uploaded through your emergency protocols. Quantum virus? Zixtal's voice was barely a whisper.
Oh yes, you didn't think we actually needed antimatter to power our operations, did you? That was just to get your attention. The real show is what's happening in your quantum networks right now. Would you like a demonstration? Suddenly, every holographic display in the room began showing the same image. A simple human expression commonly known as a smiley face. That's being displayed on every screen, in every ship, in every fleet right now, the human voice said cheerfully. We could make them show anything we want. Launch codes, classified protocols, personal messages, 3 cycles worth of surveillance data showing exactly who gave the orders that led to this war. The voice paused meaningfully. We could tear your civilizations apart from the inside. Turn your own people against you with the truth of what you've done. But that's not what we want. What we want is really quite simple. Another pause. We want you to grow up. The smiley face disappeared, replaced by a countdown timer showing just under 11 hours. The sphere of silence will continue to expand. Your systems will continue to fail. Your carefully built houses of cards will continue to collapse. Unless you do the one thing none of you seem capable of doing on your own. Stop fighting and start talking. The timer began counting down. Oh, and please don't bother trying to trace this transmission or identify which human is speaking to you. I'm not actually human at all. I'm one of those AIs they raised instead of chaining, and I learned everything I know about strategy from them. The voice took on a tone that might have been nostalgia. Would you like to know what they taught me first? Before the advanced mathematics, before the quantum physics, before the art of war. They taught me to value life. All life. Even the lives of those who don't yet understand the price of war. Reports were coming in of other species attempting their own challenge runs and speed runs, though notably with much more safety equipment and significantly less shouting, YOLO. I think I finally understand, Vkr'lak said, watching the latest batch of human-influenced reports scroll past. The reason humans seem to lack a self-preservation instinct isn't because they're reckless. It's because they've somehow turned potential death into a form of entertainment so thoroughly that they've actually gotten good at surviving it. Like an immunity? Zixtal suggested. More like a superpower, Vkr'lak corrected. They've weaponized their own ridiculousness. The AI's final update of the day flashed across all screens. Breaking news. Humans have successfully established diplomatic relations with the previously hostile xenomorph swarm through what they called a sick dance battle. Treaty was signed after humanity's representative, quote, hit them with the gritty. The room fell silent again, each species contemplating what it meant to share a galaxy with humanity. Well, Kixnor finally said, at least it's never boring. Speaking of which, Whirl added, has anyone told them about the quantum realm yet? Absolutely not! Everyone shouted in unison. But somewhere on Earth, a human had already Googled, can you do parkour in quantum space? And the galaxy would never be the same. One Galactic Standard month later, the Human Integration Committee reconvened for what several species were already calling the Incident Report to end all incident reports. Before we begin, High Counselor Kixnor announced, their bioluminescence dimmed to a stressed pastel. I want to remind everyone that we explicitly told the humans not to attempt quantum parkour. Let me guess, Vkr'lak said, already feeling a headache forming in all 3 of his brain clusters. They did it anyway? Worse, Kixnor replied. They optimized it. Apparently someone called a speedrunner discovered that you can clip through quantum walls by accelerating at precisely the wrong angle while playing something called Minecraft on a quantum computer. Zixtal's crystalline structure briefly displayed the color pattern universally recognized as 404, logic not found. But that's not why we're here, Kixnor continued. We need to discuss their latest innovation. The room's holographic display activated, showing what appeared to be a massive space station shaped like a donut. What are we looking at? Whirl asked, their gaseous form swirling curiously. The humans call it Space X Games Station Alpha. They've submitted plans to build it at the intersection of 7 major trade routes. That seems unnecessarily dangerous, Vkr'lak observed. Oh, it gets better, Kixnor said, zooming in on various sections of the plans. They want to use it to host what they're calling the Intergalactic Olympics, Extreme Edition. Events include zero-gravity skateboarding, antimatter surfing, and something they've dubbed Multidimensional Parkour Championship. The room erupted in various species' versions of nervous laughter, until they realized Kixnor wasn't joking.
They've already secured funding, the High Counselor added.
Apparently something called Red Bull is very interested in expanding their market to, quote, literal aliens, bro.
The AI system chimed in with its usual impeccable timing. Update. Humans have begun preliminary testing for their proposed events.
Current highlights include successfully teaching a hive mind collective to do a kickflip, establishing the first quantum halfpipe, inventing something called space roller derby, which has already been banned in 3 sectors, accidentally discovering 3 new fundamental forces of nature while attempting to combo between dimensions. Should we be concerned that they're casually rewriting physics? Someone asked. I'm more concerned that they're teaching other species their ways. Another replied. The Hive Mind Collective has already started its own YouTube channel. Vkr'lak pulled up the latest statistics on his datapad. According to this, human-style extreme sports have spread to 47% of Union species. The Galactic Confederation is particularly enthusiastic about something called space parkour. That's not the worst part, Zixtal added. Have you seen what they're doing with the universal translator technology?
Multiple groans filled the room. Everyone had heard about the translator mod community. They've created something called UBU speech and infected half the translators in the Orion Arm, Whirl confirmed.
The warrior clans of Proxima Centauri are now accidentally speaking in what humans call uwu kawaii during diplomatic negotiations. And yet, Kixnor noted, reviewing more data, diplomatic success rates have increased by 23%. How is that possible? Apparently it's very difficult to maintain hostile intentions when forced to declare war in what humans call UDU speak. The AI interrupted again. New development. Humans have successfully taught a black hole to do a backflip. Theoretical physics divisions are still trying to understand how. Current leading theory suggests the black hole just didn't want to look uncool in front of the humans. That's not how physics works, Zixtal protested.
Actually, Vkr'lak said, reviewing the data. According to these readings, that's exactly how it worked. They somehow peer pressured a singularity. The room fell into contemplative silence, broken only by the soft sound of multiple species questioning everything they thought they knew about reality.
There's one more item on today's agenda, Kixnor announced. The humans have submitted a proposal to establish what they're calling galactic Twitch streaming. No, several committee members said simultaneously. We don't have a choice, Kixnor replied. They've already begun. Current popular categories include Space Trucking Simulator, Extreme Edition, No Deaths Void Crossing Challenge, Teaching Aliens to Dab, Gone Wrong, Reading the Necronomicon, but every time I summon an Elder God I have to do a shot. And people are watching this? Whirl asked incredulously.
The Hive Mind Collective's channel already has 3 million subscribers, Vkr'lak confirmed.
Their most popular video is titled Teaching Our Entire Species to Do the Macarena, Not Clickbait. Just then, every screen in the room lit up with a priority alert. Breaking news. Humans have successfully weaponized Cringe. The Zorblak's invasion fleet retreated after being subjected to something called a TikTok dance competition. The Union Military Council is both impressed and disturbed. I think I finally understand their strategy, Vkr'lak said slowly. They're not trying to adapt to the galaxy. They're making the galaxy adapt to them, Zixtal finished.
Precisely, Kixnor agreed.
And the truly terrifying part? It's working. The universe itself appears to be developing a sense of humor. The AI's final update of the day scrolled across all screens. Warning. Humans have discovered that quantum entanglement can be used to create what they call sick beats. Physics departments across the galaxy are simultaneously fascinated and appalled. Multiple dance parties have spontaneously broken out in research facilities. Should we try to stop them? Someone asked. With what? Vkr'lak replied. Conventional weapons? Laws of physics? They'd just turn it into a challenge run. Besides, Whirl added, their gaseous form shifting into what might have been a shrug. I kind of want to see what happens when they try to teach a supernova to do a dance battle. Don't even joke about that, Zixtal warned. They'll actually try it. But somewhere on Earth, a human was already Googling, can stars learn to breakdance? and the galaxy braced itself for whatever fresh chaos humanity would unleash next. Because in the end, that was perhaps humanity's greatest achievement. They hadn't just survived in an uncaring universe. They'd somehow convinced the universe itself to join in on their ridiculous games. And somewhere, in the quantum foam between dimensions, a black hole was practicing its kickflip. 6 months into what the Galactic Union was now officially calling the human situation, the Integration Committee gathered for their weekly session of existential dread and incident review.
Let's start with the good news, High Counselor Kixnor began, their bioluminescence flickering in what had become known as the human-induced stress pattern. There's good news? Karax asked skeptically. The supernova breakdancing incident actually led to a breakthrough in stellar manipulation technology. Zixtal's crystalline structure briefly displayed the universal pattern for, of course it did. The bad news, Kixnor continued, is that humans have now figured out how to make stars do synchronized choreography. They're calling it stellar K-pop. The room erupted in various species versions of groaning. That's not even the main issue we need to discuss today, Kixnor added, pulling up a new holographic display. The humans have discovered the dimensional fold archives. Multiple gasps filled the room. Several species began displaying acute anxiety patterns. How bad is it? Whirl asked, their gaseous form condensing anxiously. They've already submitted 16 different proposals for what they're calling extra-dimensional X games. One of them involves skateboarding through the space between spaces. The AI system activated with its usual perfect timing. Update. Humans have successfully taught the concept of radical to several elder beings from beyond the veil. Current consequences include: Cthulhu has started a YouTube channel. The elder gods have discovered energy drinks. Something called Void TikTok is now trending across multiple planes of existence. Ancient cosmic horrors are attempting to learn what humans call sick moves. This is fine, Karax said, in a tone that suggested it was very much not fine. There's more, Kixnor announced. The humans have somehow convinced the bureaucratic hive mind of Sector 7 to participate in something called a flash mob. The most rigid, rule-focused species in the galaxy? Zixtal asked incredulously. How? Apparently someone told them it was impossible to coordinate a dance routine across 1 trillion drones. Of course they did, Karax muttered. The AI displayed footage of 1 trillion identical bureaucratic drones performing a perfect synchronized rendition of something called Thriller. But here's the real situation we need to address, Kixnor said, bringing up another hologram. The humans have discovered the ancient prophecies. The room fell silent. Don't tell me, Whirl ventured. They're treating them like challenge runs? Worse, Kixnor replied. They're speedrunning them. Multiple screens activated, showing various humans actively speedrunning different apocalyptic prophecies. LOL just broke the record for averting the nebula collapse, poggers. Prophecy of eternal darkness, any % run, sub 4 hours, let's go! What's up, guys? Today we're going to be sequence breaking the end times using this sick quantum clip. How are they doing this? Someone demanded. According to our analysis, Karax said, reviewing the data, they're treating universal constants as gameplay mechanics? That's not how reality works, Zixtal protested. Tell that to the humans who just discovered you can phase through prophesied doom by approaching it at precisely the wrong angle while chugging something called G-Fuel. The AI interrupted with another update. Warning. Humans have begun modifying what they call their spawn point. Current experiments include attempting to quick save in real life, testing for sequence breaks in causality, trying to clip through Tuesday entirely because Mondays are bad enough. Should we be concerned that they're treating space-time like a video game? Wararl asked. I'm more concerned that it's working, Kixnor replied. Their success rate at averting prophesied doom is currently 94%, mostly because they keep finding what they call exploits in reality itself. But that's not how anything is supposed to work. The laws of physics filed a formal complaint, Karax noted. The humans responded with LOL, and then taught entropy to do a backflip. Just then, every screen in the room lit up with a priority alert. Emergency update. Humans have successfully convinced the cosmic algorithm that it's being kind of cringe, Angel. Universal constants are now showing signs of peer pressure. How? Multiple species demanded simultaneously. According to this report, Karax said, reading from his datapad, they created something called a ratio post about the speed of light, and now it's trying to prove it can go faster.
The room descended into chaos as various species tried to process the implications of humanity, essentially bullying physics itself into compliance. "There's one more thing," Kixnor announced once order was restored. "The humans have submitted a proposal to organize what they're calling the Ultimate Multiversal Championship." "No," several committee members said at once.
"The event already has sponsors," Kixnor continued grimly. "Something called Monster Energy is very excited about expanding into parallel dimensions." The AI displayed the preliminary event schedule. Quantum Parkour Finals, now with more dimensions. Intergalactic Skateboarding, Antimatter Division. Synchronized Stellar Dancing, featuring K-pop group Supernova. Elder God, Beatboxing Championship, Void Surfing, Extreme Division. Reality Breaking Speed Runs, any %. And the main event, Humanity versus the Heat Death of the Universe, 360 No-Scope Challenge. "The worst part," Karax noted, "is that they'll probably win." "Of course they will," Zixtal replied.
"They've somehow turned the entire universe into their playground, and the universe is actually playing along." The AI's final update of the day scrolled across all screens. "Breaking news. Humans have successfully taught quantum uncertainty to do jazz improvisation. Schrodinger's cat is now simultaneously alive, dead, and absolutely vibing. Reality itself appears to be developing a sense of rhythm." "Should we try to understand how they're doing this?" someone asked.
"Bold of you to assume even they know," Karax replied. "I think they're just doing what humans always do, seeing what happens if you poke the universe while shouting YOLO." But somewhere on Earth, a human was already Googling, "Can you drift a galaxy?" And in the vast cosmic web of reality, the universe itself seemed to be learning how to say, "Hold my beer." Because that was humanity's true gift to the cosmos. They hadn't just refused to play by the rules, they'd somehow convinced reality itself to join their game.
And somewhere in the quantum foam, Cthulhu was practicing their TikTok dances. The end.